Dickson is one of the more overlooked Xenovillains, being more well known for his betrayal than the events which led up to it. As one of Xanth's disciples, he remains the first true villain we're exposed to, the only mechon shown being mindless machines up until after Dickson's introduction, and even then, faced mechon were antagonists for reasons irrelevant to the Xantha situation. Dickson is commonly misconstrued by casual fans and hardcore lore enjoyers alike. I'm here to talk about that, and why Dickson from the original Xenoblade Chronicles is far, far worse than you remember. Shulk's parents were killed when he was 4 years old. From the moment that happened, Dickson's every choice regarding Shulk boiled down to one motive: to prime Shulk as Xanth's vessel. Dickson was canonically an adoptive father figure to Shulk, more than Dunban, who could arguably be more of an older brother to him, considering Shulk's relationship with Fiora. Mind you, Shulk had been conceived and born during the Minato expedition, of which he was the only survivor. Dickson was the only adult he could trust after that, and likely his only living connection in general until moving to Colony 9, making him particularly vulnerable. Aside from the prologue, our more thorough introduction to Dickson takes place in the very first lab scene. Dickson had evidently fucked off to who knows where, and Shulk was pleasantly surprised upon his return, eager to show him his progress with the Minato, while also crediting Dickson's research as a significant help. To Shulk, Dickson was a scientist too, but in actuality, most if not all of Dickson's knowledge of the Minato was developed during his time with Xantha. He drip-fed Shulk the truth enough to pique his curiosity towards the divine weapon, but not so much to give it all away. His goal wasn't to just give Shulk answers, it was to make him ask questions with a curiosity strong enough to cause him to pursue it. He was priming a straight path into Xantha's clutches. He did this with Dunban too, but it seems he revealed different information to the two of them. In the lab scene, Shulk tells Dickson about his findings that the Minato possibly has secret powers the Homs had yet to unlock. Dickson feigns a lack of knowledge on this information, but Dunban mentions later that Dickson had implied in the past about these exact secret powers within the Minato.
What are these hidden functions you mention?
It's still only conjecture, but it's starting to look like the Minato might be something far more significant than just a weapon for defeating mechon.
I see. And the evidence to support your theory?
It's the symbol that appears in the center when it's activated. What I know is, the central piece is made from multi-layered glass. The symbol appears on the top layer, and each layer is constructed differently.
So it's possible that other symbols could appear on different layers.
Which means
the Minato might conceal even more power.
Shulk, do you feel all right?
I'm okay, but there was something strange. Just now, it was as if I could see into the future. Is this another power of the Minato?
See into the future? What are you saying? Are you certain, Shulk?
Yes.
I see. I remember Dickson saying that the Minato had a hidden power. Could this be it? What?
Dickson's betrayal felt obvious to most of us, considering the mid-game line where he explicitly states feeling a smidgen of guilt over betraying everyone.
Can't say I feel so good about deceiving these kids.
What's that you say?
But to Shulk and the others, this hurt. They'd been friendly with Dickson for a minimum of 14 years at this point, our main trio having known him since childhood and seen him as a trustworthy adult figure. His betrayal was abrupt. He'd truly played the long game, and it wasn't via the trite villain technique where they reveal their true plans through words. As Shulk was getting through to Eggle after an impossibly difficult fight, with everyone's guards finally let down, Dickson shot and killed Shulk, only to reveal he knew Shulk to have been dead the whole time. For the cast, there was no warning. Dickson just showed up out of nowhere and killed the boy who saw him as his father. I'll talk more on Shulk in a bit, but for now, we're missing a key player in Dickson's scheming, someone who had no idea he was even involved. forget, despite Dunban's heroics, Dickson was essentially his right-hand man during the Battle of Sword Valley. He significantly contributed to the win, and his knowledge of the Monado assisted Dunban considerably, which is implied as early as Chapter 1. The thing about Dunban being the sort of mentor figure to the party is true, but I'd argue he more so represents Rhine's foil, while Dickson represents Shulk. Despite Dunban and Shulk both being the protagonist of their respective trios, Dickson was the brains to Dunban's brawn, which is the exact dynamic we see between Shulk and Rhine. During the prologue sequence, we see Dunban being reckless and aggressive, while Dickson is there to be his voice of reason, a far cry from the Dunban we see in the party during the main events, aside from one specific moment.
Die! Stop! Get out of my way, Shulk!
It's Mumkar! He's not a Mechon!
Have you forgotten everything he's done? Where is your killer instinct? Now is the time!
I hate him, Dunban! For what he did to Fiora and the Emperor! So of course I want to get my revenge!
Shulk.
But... Face Mechon are not like the others. They're people. Like us. Are you really willing to kill another Homs?
Yes, sometimes needs must.
Even if it's Fiora? What then?
Dunban's character is special when it comes to the wise and level-headed mentor trope. That's because he isn't always level-headed. There are key times his rightful anger outweighs that maturity. Specifically, when Dunban is about to kill Mumkar after the final fight against Metalface. Despite the facade of emotional strength expressed throughout the story so far, Dunban's desire to kill Mumkar is, truthfully, reasonable. We've seen Dunban suppressing his grief and focusing on being the older brother to the rest of the party, the way he could no longer do for Fiora. It's clear in this scene that his behavior thus far was how he coped with the loss. This was Dunban temporarily regressing to who he was before the main events of the game, the version Dickson learned to coerce and control. Ultimately, it's Shulk who talks Dunban down. This is exactly the role Dickson played during the Battle of Sword Valley. The difference, of course, is that Shulk intended to win Dunban over to what he believed to be right, while Dickson's goal was to convince everyone of his camaraderie and concern. I truly think if we'd gotten more time seeing the main trio's childhood, plus Dunban, the betrayal would have been much more obviously traumatic. Which leads me to my next point. The thing about grooming is that it isn't always sexual. Grooming refers to preparing someone, generally a child, for an abusive situation. Dickson groomed Shulk into becoming Zanza's vessel. This is seen through his successful efforts to gain Shulk's trust, gaining the trust of those around Shulk, specifically Dunban, fostering a curiosity with the Monado, the closest link to Zanza, by tactically providing snippets of information to keep Shulk's interest, using said interest to isolate him while feigning concern about that isolation, and later encouraging him to pursue Metalface. Let's take a look at the various stages that occur during the action of grooming. First off, we have the selection and targeting of a young person. Anyone can be groomed, but more vulnerable individuals are generally chosen to be the victims, and grooming commonly involves making the victim more vulnerable than they were to begin with. Shulk was orphaned at 4 years old and had no understanding of home, having been raised on an expedition where all he knew was travel. His circumstances alone were instilled for Zanza's plan. The loss of his parents was part of the grooming process ensured by Dickson. Shulk was chosen out of convenience. He was the easiest of the group to manipulate and control, being so young. From the moment he was conceived, he was doomed to be Zanza's vessel, and Dickson was the one who made sure of this. The next stage involves building trust with both the victim and those around them, which was especially easy for Dickson. I've already touched on the isolation, which was the main method Dickson used to build that trust, but the killing of Shulk's parents wasn't the only example used. Fostering Shulk's interest in research, as well as covertly encouraging his asocial tendencies, carried on throughout his entire youth.
What? What do you mean it's broken? Don't you care about me? I could have died!
You're not hurt, are you?
Dunban's role in this was intentional. Yes, his ability to control the Monado was due to his willpower, but Zanza also allowed it. Dickson manipulated Dunban, and by putting Dunban on a pedestal for Shulk as the only other adult individual Shulk ever truly looked up to, because of that connection to the Monado, Dickson had control over a separate variable in Shulk's life. Dunban allowed Shulk to feel more supported while maintaining the necessary isolation. Exposure is the next stage. Generally, this would refer to sexualization and exposure to inappropriate media in order to desensitize the grooming victim. In Shulk's case, however, this was exposure to the Monado and its effects, both negative and positive. Shulk's interest in the Monado isolated him, but also accustomed him to Zanza without him even knowing who Zanza was. Arglist was later utilized for the same purpose, exploiting the us versus them mentality Egil had unintentionally instilled during his slaughter of Hom's kind. By upgrading the Monado to kill-faced Mechon, the biggest threat against Homs and the receptor of Shulk's fury, Shulk was unknowingly given a weapon that would make him a bigger threat against his own people. The scene with Arglist, or Zanza, on Prison Island was a key turning point for Shulk and Dickson. It was a point of no return for Shulk, and the fruits of Dickson's labor. It was everything Dickson manipulated Shulk into. Which leads me to control, the final stage of grooming. Dickson maintained the most control not via force, but through all of his actions during the 14 years he raised Shulk. His raising Shulk painted him as selfless and caring, instilling trust in the entirety of Colony 9. Shulk turned to him in times of need, turned to him for help thinking things through when thinking was Shulk's strongest talent. Dickson controlled Shulk all the way up until the Monado 2 came about on Prison Island, and from there he hardly had to do anything at all. Egil's intent of genocide, Mumkar's jealousy towards Dunban, the overarching grief from Fiora's death, and Shulk's own desire for revenge did the work for Dickson. All he had to do was wait until the perfect moment, the moment Egil was taken care of and he could finally bring Zanza back for good. Dickson knew Shulk from childhood, likely before Shulk even became Zanza's. Dickson raised Shulk. He got to know Shulk better than most anyone else, became Shulk's most trusted mentor intellectually, and still shot him in the back. It was all calculated, and we are given only a brief moment where he wavers, only to follow through anyway. He made Shulk his son, and he made Shulk his victim, all to call him a little brat for being so kind and forgiving that he chose to offer Egil mercy.
You shouldn't have done that, little brat.
Upon Dickson's defeat, he expresses that Zanza promised him the power of a god, and that was the motive he had for doing all of this. He even steps aside to disguise his own defeat, although whether this was for his own pride or to spare his once comrades the pain of seeing someone else they used to love die is unclear. It's implied to be the former, but the only implication came from Dickson in his final moments, so the truth is up in the air. As he dies, he thinks of Shulk and everything he raised him to be, realizing that none of it ended up being worthwhile, and referring to Shulk as his student one final time. I personally think the fact that he did care for Shulk makes him so much worse, not as a character, but as an individual. He didn't follow through because he didn't care, he followed through despite the fact that he did care. He cared for power, godhood, and Zanza more than he did the boy he raised as his own. And he was a damn good actor, convincing everyone around him that he was their ally. Grooming victims tend to have complicated relationships with their abusers, often carrying love and compassion for them, even after realizing how harmful their groomers were to them. It's Shulk who deals the final blow, and Fiora mentions this, to which Shulk's only response is the suppression of his emotion, knowing he has no time to grieve. All of this to say, Shulk is a far more tragic character than many realize, and Dickson is far worse than you may have thought. What he did was not just selfish, but cruel as well. Despite this, I think his development in writing is exceptionally well done, and shouldn't be overlooked as much as it is, especially considering he plays such an important role in our protagonist's life. Shulk is a wonderful example of non-sexual grooming in media and is commonly misunderstood, even in his own story. Anyhow, I love the Xeno series, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. I love hearing your thoughts, so feel free to drop a comment, and I'll see you all next time.